Hello and welcome to another Ourdadsstamps video. For today's video I thought I'd continue with our look at the islands of the South Atlantic and look at the Falkland Islands and the Falkland Island Dependencies. For the people of United Kingdom, the Falkland Isles are well known following on from the war against Argentina in 1982 over sovereignty of the islands. They are situated about 300 miles northeast of the southern tip of South America and are made up of two islands, East Falkland and West Falkland, and then several hundred smaller islands, totaling an area of about 4,500 square miles with a population of 2,500 people, plus a large military base which is permanently stationed there. What I didn't realise before making this video was just how far away the Falkland Island Dependencies are from the actual Falkland Islands. Up to 2,000 miles in the case of South Sandwich Islands, so it seems strange that they are actually classed as dependencies of the Falkland Isles. The dependencies originally were made up of 6 different territories: the South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands, South Orkney Islands, South Shetland Islands, Graham Land, which is actually part of the Antarctic Peninsula, and the peninsula itself. In 1962, the British Antarctic Territory was formed following a treaty system, and this left only South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands as a Falkland Island dependencies. And then in 1985, they became totally independent. The first stamps of the Falkland Islands were issued in 1878, and they show quite a different design from other stamps of the British Commonwealth. It features an image of Queen Victoria facing right in an oval vignette with a pattern around it. There were initially 4 values: the penny, 4pence, 6pence and 1 shilling. And then in 1891 more values were added. And in 1898 a higher value 2 and 6 and 5 shilling stamp were issued, which again created a new design unseen in anywhere else in the Commonwealth. Similar designs followed for Edward VII and King George V, with a set in 1912 running from a halfpenny up to a £1 value. Apart from the lower value stamps, these command quite a premium, and the complete set of 11 stamps catalogues round about £1,000 mint and £1,200 used. A new design was issued in 1929 based on sketches by Commander Amadroth and featuring an image of King George V with a fin whale and a gentoo penguin underneath. This set runs from a halfpenny up to £1 as well. And again, a set of 11 stamps is fairly expensive, £700 mint, £800 used. So in 1933, the Falkland Isles produced their first pictorial set, and it is a very nice set and a much sought after set. The stamps feature different images of the Falkland Isles, animals and surrounding area, and only the £1 value shows an image of King George V. There's a total of 12 stamps in the set, and as I said, they are very sought after. The whole set mints catalogues at over £4,000, and used it's more than £6,000. So it's very difficult to get hold of the whole set, but it is a very attractive looking set, and even if you can only get a few of them, they are still nice stamps to get hold of. In 1938, the first pictorial set for King George VI was issued, and again this is a very nice set. It runs from a halfpenny up to £1 and contains 16 stamps. Not as valuable as the King George V set. Mint catalogues at round about £475 and used £250. But it is a nice looking set and shows a lot of the wildlife of the islands as well as scenes from around it. As usual, it's the top values that command the highest premium, and it's not too difficult to get hold of the stamps up to about a shilling. So definitely worth looking out for, and definitely a nice set to have. And this set was the first stamps used in the Falkland Island Dependencies. The 4 dependencies, Graham Land, South Georgia, South Orkneys and South Shetlands, all overprinted 8 values up to 1 shilling, with their name followed by dependency of in red. And these are very easy to get hold of. Each set only catalogues at around about £20 mint and half of that used, so they are quite easy to get hold of, but they do make a nice addition to a Falkland Isles collection. After this set, the Falkland Island Dependencies produced their own designs and their own stamps, and in 1946 there was a very well-known set of maps showing the Falkland Islands and its position relative to the South Pole. Now this set is interesting because there were 2 printings done, and they are described as, one is thick and coarse design and the other is thin and clear design. Now unless you've got both sets, or at least an example from both sets, it's very difficult for you to know which is which. They are quite easy to tell apart once you have the 2, but without both it is a difficult thing to do, and there is a big difference in the value of the sets. The thick and coarse set catalogued at only £13 for the whole set mint and £27 used. And these are 8 stamps running from a halfpenny up to a 1 shilling. The thin and clear set, which was issued slightly later, again run from a halfpenny up to 1 shilling and contain 9 stamps rather than 8, with the addition of a twopenny halfpenny stamp. But this set catalogues at £90 mint and £110 used. So it's definitely worth looking out for both sets and making sure you know which one you've got. And hopefully you can get hold of both sets. As you can see from the image, when you've got both of them together, it is quite clear which is which. But without that comparison, if you've only got one set, it's not quite so easy. In 1954, there's a very nice Queen Elizabeth set issued, which runs from a halfpenny up to £1 and shows images of ships. It's reasonably expensive to get hold of. There's 15 stamps and the catalogue value for mint is £225, £130 used. And once again, values up to 2 and 6pence are relatively cheap. It's the 5 shilling, 10 shilling, £1 value that's the expensive ones. But it is a really nice set, even without the 3 high values, so I'd definitely recommend looking out for it. From 1963 onwards, South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands used stamps that were inscribed South Georgia. And there's an interesting set issued in 1963 which features the fauna of the Falkland Islands, but on plain backgrounds, and it's quite an interesting looking set. This set was overprinted in 1971 when the country decimalised, as did many of the British Commonwealth countries. Oddly, in the 1980s, stamps inscribed Falkland Island Dependencies were issued again for a few years, before South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands became totally independent in 1985. The Falkland Isles themselves continue to issue stamps, and a second King George VI issue was made in 1952, again running from a halfpenny up to £1. Reasonably priced, catalogued at £190, mint £90 used. And again, quite a nice set. I think all the early issues from the Falkland Isles are actually quite nice stamps. They were relatively different from a lot of the British Commonwealth sets, and I think they designed them well. In 1955, a few of the designs from King George VI were used with Queen Elizabeth II's image, but these only ran from a halfpenny up to a shilling and consisted of 6 stamps. Very reasonable to get hold of, so it's quite a nice small set. And then a fuller issue was made in 1960, which, as with all the others, runs from a halfpenny up to £1 and shows images of the bird life of the island. And that, once again, is quite a nice set, definitely worth looking for, and not hugely expensive. £180 for the 15 stamps mint and about £80 used, so definitely worth looking out for. And as I said, I do think they look quite nice. In 1968, a new Queen Elizabeth set was issued with a much more modern design, and this shows various flowers throughout the islands. Once again, running from a halfpenny to a £1 value with 14 stamps. And catalogues £75 mint, £50 used, so not too expensive. And like many Commonwealth countries at that time, in 1971, they were overprinted with new decimal values, running from ½ up to 25p, which was overprinted on the 5 shilling stamp. And then a few months later, they were reissued in decimal currency. Like all small islands, flora and fauna feature largely in their thematic issues of stamps, and as well as the set on flowers. There's also an interesting set in 1984 on insects, which is well worth a look and very reasonably priced. Other things to look out for is that there's also several sets on birds of various types from the island, particularly penguins. There's many sets featuring penguins, which are certainly worth looking out for the thematic collector. There's a nice looking set in 1986. Another one on king penguins in 1991, and a series in 2008-2010 on breeding penguins. But there are many others that you can look out for if you're interested in just penguins. For birds in general, there's a really nice looking set that was issued in 1998. Not hugely expensive to buy, runs from 1p up to £5, and catalogues at round about £30-40, so quite easy to get hold of. With the flora and fauna, there's also a really nice set of whales issued in 2012. One of many sets issued regarding whales, but this one runs from a penny up to £5. And once again, catalogue's £30-40, so it's not too difficult to get hold of. As you would expect, given its history, the military features in quite a lot of stamps from the Falkland Islands. There's a nice set on aircraft in 2008, running from 1p up to £5. That's not too expensive at all. There's also many sets regarding the Navy and warships. There are several series on maritime heritage that were issued on regular basis from 2005 onwards, round about every 2 years, so they're certainly worth looking out for. And there's a nice set on mail ships, printed in 1978. This runs from 1p up to £3 and is very, very cheap to get hold of. The whole set together does look quite nice. Contains 15 stamps. The catalogue value is less than £15 for the whole set, so definitely one worth looking out for if ships are your thematic interest. And another set in 1989 on Cape Horn sailing ships, which is quite nice, looking at old galleons. Again, runs from 1p up to £5. A little bit more expensive for this one. It's catalogued at £50 to £60, but not out of the question and definitely worth looking out for. One final thing to look out for. After the war in 1982, there are numerous sets celebrating the liberation of the Falkland Islands from the Argentinians. And if military history is one of your interests, one of your collection areas, then, as I said, there are numerous sets and numerous mini sheets that you can buy, and several sets commemorating specific events during the war. So definitely a lot there to look out for. So I hope that's given you a flavour of the stamps of the Falkland Isles and Falkland Isles dependencies. As always with these videos that I make, I've learned quite a lot from doing them, and I hope you have as well. And I look forward to doing more in the new year. I will take a break now over Christmas and be back again in January sometime with some more stories about individual countries. So, Feliz Fiestas, and see you next year.